Hi, welcome to Jovie's Home. I post new videos every Tuesday and mostly Thursday. Today, we are continuing with our series, What It's Like, and I will have a special guest, my friend Elke, who will be sharing what it's like to have a baby with IVF in the Netherlands. So if you haven't seen my video already on what it's like to have a baby or give birth in the Netherlands, it's linked here. But we are going to talk about the actual process and the cost and what it's like to actually go through IVF treatment here in the Netherlands. So if that sounds good to you, then why don't you come on in, kick off your shoes and stay a while. I'm really glad you're here. So you guys, please say welcome to my friend Elke, who is now expecting her second baby, and it's very exciting. She has come on to share her experience. This is your second time going through an IVF process in the Netherlands?
Yeah, exactly.
So she's willing to share like the first time and the second time. We can talk about what it was like.
Yeah.
And before we really get into it, I just want to say a disclaimer. Neither one of us is a doctor. We're not like talking about that. We're just sharing her experience, and so that you guys know kind of what to expect. Yeah? Okay. So, Elke, let's just start at the very beginning. And can you tell me, because I want to compare a little bit with like how it was for my friends in the United States or my friends in Germany. How do you start an IVF procedure in the Netherlands? Like, how do you know when you need to go to a specialist, or how does that work? In the United States, they usually recommend you try on your own for 1 year to have a baby. And if you're not successful after 12 months, then you see a fertility specialist. Is that the same case here, or is it different?
It's the same here. So indeed, generally speaking, I think, well, you go to your home doctor first with basically with anything in the Netherlands. So also when you have fertility problems, and I think the home doctor will always tell you, ask you how long have you been trying, and typically after a year they will refer you to a gynecologist, who will then first of all check the woman if everything seems okay, and then of course, again, this is our experience, so I don't know if it goes exactly like this for everyone, and they'll ask the man to hand in semen, I guess you would say, to also check if from their side things are okay.
Okay.
And then based on what that says, they'll refer you to further specialists and the right kind of treatment if needed, because I guess some people will just get a result of everything works fine, you just need to keep trying. Yeah.
A little bit more patience needed.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And so then in the case that everything is not fine and you are actually referred to an IVF procedure, well, let's take a step back and talk about the cost, because for a lot of people, I know in the United States, treatment like this easily costs like $30,000 for one round of IVF. My friend Mary, she has a YouTube channel. I will actually link the video here. She inspired this video talking about IVF in Germany. And she told us that approximately, it's very general, it's different for everyone, but they pay starting around 5,000 euro to have one round of IVF. Because that's something that you have to consider before you go into it, right? What is it in the Netherlands? How does that work?
Well, yeah, I have to say I feel very lucky that here is not so much something to consider, because insurance covers basically everything except your own risk. I think you call that own risk as well in English.
A deductible. Yeah,
the deductible. Yeah.
Deductible.
So that's a standard of, if you have a standard insurance here, that's a standard 385 per year. So if you need or want a fertility treatment, any type of treatment, that's the money you'll have to pay.
That's the maximum you'll have to pay.
That's the maximum you'll have to pay. Yes.
385 euros.
But there is a maximum of 3 rounds of IVF that you'll have within 385 per year. Yes.
That's amazing. Okay.
It is.
So when we're
Really
comparing,
amazing.
Okay. And that's in the basic insurance.
That's in the basic insurance, yeah.
So when we talk about basic insurance, it is the one that is legally required by every person in the Netherlands who is living here to have. And this is under Dutch insurance also, I should say. So don't think that you can now come from America to the Netherlands with your American insurance and just like have some IVF. It's you really, we're talking about the Dutch healthcare system with Dutch insurance and yeah.
You could consider moving here for a while.
Okay. So now let's get into what that looked like for you. So there was an issue and you were referred to an IVF specialist, is that correct?
Well, there are only, I hope I'm saying this right, 3 hospitals in the Netherlands that do certain types of IVF treatments. But there are many more that do, let's say, the more simple treatment, where they'll give you hormones to kind of aid your cycle, and then they'll, I guess you say, no, it's not, again, not inject the semen, would you say that? Like they put it straight into the uterus just to make sure it gets to the right place, I think. Yeah, something like that. It's called IUI treatment. I really, don't quote me on this because that's not the treatment I had, so maybe it's not exactly like that. But that they do in a lot of hospitals. Once you go more complicated, really IVF, so when you need a lab basically to do the matching of the semen with the
egg.
With the eggs, with the egg. Then you'll need to go to one of those 3 hospitals in the Netherlands, and I think it's Groningen, in Utrecht, the UMC, and Erasmus in Rotterdam, that they do this treatment.
Okay. So which treatment did you end up having, just for people to...
So I had IVF treatment, but then specifically ICSI, it's called, ICSI. So IVF, it means in vitro, so just that it's the fertilization is done in a petri dish. The standard type is that they basically put an egg in there and they put loads of semen, and then they see whoever fertilizes the egg. If you have ICSI, then they kind of want to increase the chance that it becomes a good fertilized egg by already picking out the best semen, and injecting that into the embryo, into the egg to create the embryo. Okay. So I guess you would say it's the most complicated, advanced fertility treatment. Okay. So so then for the rest of this episode, we are going to be talking about your experience with the ICSI IVF treatment. So. Indeed. Okay. So then I guess you were referred to one of the hospitals that does this. Right. Yeah. So I first went to that gynecologist to get checked. That was not in any hospital. It was in a normal hospital. When she had established our case, she sent us through to Erasmus to get the ICSI treatment done. Let me think what happened then. Then they want to test you all over again. Don't ask me why, but it seems to be a thing in the Netherlands that the hospitals say, but we want to check it also ourselves. So it's quite a lengthy process. It took us 1.5 years to 2 years to go from the GP, from the home doctor, to actually getting pregnant. And that's still not long compared to how long it takes some people. So it is quite lengthy because when you start, so let's say when we started at Erasmus, then we had to wait for going to an information evening, they called it, where you sit in a hall with more people that are gonna go through the fertility treatment, and they give you all kinds of general information. Then you wait for your next appointment where they will test you, and then they will talk to you, and then you have to sign all kinds of forms, and every time you have to wait a couple weeks for the new appointment. And then and then finally when you start, I had to wait for my period to come, and then I start injecting hormones twice. No, the first few days only one. That's the one to kind of make my follicles grow. So the what do you call it? Kind of cells that contain your eggs. You call those follicles. And so to make them grow, I got first started with that injection, and then after a few days I had to inject to stop my ovulation from happening, because obviously when my ovulation happens, then all the follicles would, all the eggs would jump and I would lose them, and that's not what they want. Because then every few days I would go into the hospital to get checked to see how much my follicles are growing, and then at a certain point they'll say, okay, we have they're big enough now, but not too big. It's a very delicate moment where they try to maximize the amount of follicles that you get without making it too risky for you. And then they'll do what they call the ovum pickup. So I went in for a treatment. It's just a couple of hours. I did get an IV, and I had to lie in a big chair with my legs up. And then they go in with a big needle. This was the least fun part of the whole fertility treatment. No. They go in with a big needle down there, and it really it hurts a lot, let's say. I did get some morphine, but that only helps slightly. So 2 times they have to go on each side with the needle into your ovaries, and they take out the follicles. Okay. And then once they have those, the next following days are very crucial, because that's when on the same day they'll put it together with the semen, and then they keep it growing in the petri dish for 5 days. And then on day 5, you'll know how many embryos have survived, and they will place one. They have placed every time one back into my uterus. And then it stays there and I'm pregnant, or I lose it, just like you would have a regular miscarriage, and I would get my period after a while. And the rest, if I had, so on my very first cycle of all this, I had actually 7 embryos. No, I say that wrong. I had 8 embryos. So 1 was placed, and then 7 they tried to put in the freezer. But that's a very delicate process, so we lost 1 embryo when they were freezing it. And so we had 6 left. And then for me, on the 3rd attempt of them placing an embryo back, so it's each month, each cycle, I can get an embryo back, for as long as I have embryos, obviously. On the 3rd attempt, I got pregnant in the first time.
Okay. So you only, to have your first child, you had 1 visit to the IVF specialist, 1 round of medications, 1 retrieval process to get your eggs. In that same time, 1 time, from that you were resulted with 8 possible embryos.
Yeah.
And every month they would put in 1 embryo to see if you would get pregnant.
Yes.
And on your 3rd month, you got pregnant.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
So then what happens to, well, you said you had 8, 1 was lost in the freezing process, you used up 3, so then we have 4 left.
Yeah.
What happens to the remaining 4 once you're pregnant?
So the hospital keeps them in the freezer basically until you tell them not to. I'm assuming that after a couple of years they will contact you to ask if you want anything, if you still want to use them. In our case, we contacted them after I don't know, 1.5 to 2 years, I guess, because we wanted to try and have a second baby. And and then we had 3 more placements, because again, also the defrosting of the embryos is a delicate process. So we also lost 1 embryo when defrosting it before placing it back into my uterus. So we then had 3 more attempts, so each again 1 month, to try and get pregnant again.
Okay. Wow, I mean, it's just that must be so frustrating, and when you know everything. It's also frustrating when you're trying to get pregnant spontaneously, but this.
Well, I guess there is a little bit more weight each time, because you have a certain day that you're allowed to do the pregnancy test. And I know it's also when you're trying to get pregnant, and then the date you're supposed to get your period, and it's very similar in that sense, but maybe just because that you have limit, you do have a limited amount of attempts in the Netherlands, because it is covered, but only 3 rounds. So you do know that
Let's get to that a little bit later. Let's get really into the insurance or like how that works in a little bit.
Okay.
I want to go back to what you said though. Now when you said after like 1.5 to 2 years, you guys decided you wanted to have a second child. So then you called up the hospital directly.
Yeah,
so
I did.
So then you did not have to go through your house arts again? Or you did?
No, actually, now that you mention it, I did call the hospital, but they said that I do need a new referral from my house arts.
Okay.
But that was also a matter of giving a call to my home doctor, and then they sent the referral through.
Okay. So then, yeah, you just have to start that process again, like from your home doctor, getting another referral, and then going back to the...
Yes, but it's really, I have to say, that was nothing. That was really within a day that was organized.
Yeah.
So,
okay.
Yeah.
And then because you already had some embryos left, then you didn't have to go through the hormones and all of that again, right? It was just, well, maybe that's a bit too personal, but did it count as another attempt for your second child that you were using?
No.
You were using embryos?
No. So only when each hormone treatment is considered an attempt, a round of IVF, or of treatment, let's say. So this was still part of my, even though it was for my second child, it was still part of that round that I already did. So there were no, it didn't count as another attempt.
In the Netherlands, under basic insurance, 3 rounds of IVF are covered.
Yeah.
Right? 3 rounds. What is a round of IVF?
So a round of IVF is every time you have hormone treatment plus an ovum pickup. It doesn't matter how many embryos you get out of it, whether it's 1 or whether it's 20. I don't think many people have 20, but however many placements you have afterwards, that counts as 1 round.
Okay. So it's the round of the medication plus the ovum pickup. That is considered a round.
Yeah.
What happens if after 1 round you are not successful in getting pregnant?
Then you have 2 more rounds left, unless you have maybe another insurance that has a 4th round covered. And yeah, that's it. And then if you don't get pregnant within the 3 or 4 rounds that you have covered by insurance, then like in any country, you can pay for it yourself. Although even then, the information that I have gotten is that it is still a lot cheaper than, for example, in the US. At the time I got a folder from the hospital with something around 6,000 per attempt in it. I would say maybe that was optimistic, but yeah. I wouldn't, I don't have that much knowledge of it, but I do know it's not 30,000.
Yeah. What happens if, okay, let's say, like in your case, you did 1 round and you did have a successful pregnancy from that first round.
Yeah.
How many attempts now do you have left? If you want to have a subsequent, like for your second child, how many attempts do you have?
So whenever a child is born, you start again on 0.
So it reverts back to like, as if you've never had an attempt before.
Correct.
That's amazing.
Yes. And I just, before we did this interview, I Googled it. There is actually, I cannot find anywhere a maximum amount of babies that you're allowed to have with IVF. But obviously, sadly, most people that go through this, they have a hard time getting pregnant. So I think that for a lot of people, they are just incredibly happy to have 1 or 2 children. Yeah. But there is, in essence, it's, you could get as many babies as you like. So
if we can say, as long as each attempt is successful, or like as long as when you attempt it, you end up with a baby or a pregnancy, you can keep going.
For another kid,
For another, okay. That's really...
And then even if you have a stillborn child, so I believe the mark is around 20 weeks. Once you're 20 weeks pregnant and then you have a stillborn child, that counts as having a baby. So even then you would start again on 0.
Yeah, okay, so they wouldn't consider having a stillborn or maybe a late miscarriage. They wouldn't consider that not counted against you, but it's
exactly.
You can still have,
and it's also, I would say, it's also indeed very fair because it's very dramatic when you have so late a miscarriage.
Yeah, of course, it would be devastating.
So, but miscarriages, of course, earlier than that, they do not count as as a child, let's say. So then you do miss one attempt, well, one placement still. Because if you have more embryos in the freezer, you can still continue in the same round.
Okay. What was it like for you? Like, how did you find the process of going through the treatment? Like, did you find that people were caring? Was the hospital like kind? Were they willing to answer your questions? What was that like for you you are Dutch, we should say that. You are Dutch, so you speak Dutch really
I speak the language, yes.
But your husband is not Dutch, so...
He's not, no.
So,
yeah.
But what was that process like for you going through that? How did you feel? What did you think was great? Was there things you feel like could have been better? Well, just what was it like?
I think that for, let's say, if the thing that was less nice is what I mentioned also, that we had to do a lot of tests 3 times. Because every hospital, every doctor, we did first for the home doctor, then we did it for the first hospital we went to, then they referred us to Erasmus and they want to do again all the tests. This was a little bit annoying, and in general, you know, the process is quite lengthy, that sometimes you're like, okay, let's get moving. But unfortunately, there are quite a lot of people and more people that have fertility issues, so I completely also understand from the hospital, sometimes things just take a while. But it is also, especially the last, for this baby that I have now, they had a waiting list actually in Erasmus. So whenever I had now my first round, so again with the hormone treatments after I had the 3 placements, after that I had to have 3 or even 4 months of waiting period before I could do my second round, because of the waiting list. So I do know that they were remodeling in Erasmus now, I think also to accommodate that, because their lab wasn't big enough. So that was let's say the bad parts, the frustrating parts. But I have to say that of course I have only experience in Erasmus, but they were amazing. The doctors spoke English for my husband. We could ask so many questions, and they were very patient. So yeah, I would, in that sense, I have nothing to really complain about, besides maybe having to wait. But yeah, you know, I'm Dutch and patient.
No,
so no, but it's and I have nothing to complain about, because like I said, in 1.5 years we managed, and there is really so many people who struggle for way longer. But no, I really felt, especially compared to some other doctors in the Netherlands, that they were taking a lot of time, and that they were very willing, especially also to communicate with my husband in another language was really amazing.
It's so important that both people feel in that moment that understood, and
yeah.
So Elke, can you tell me, how does it work when you had 7 embryos after your first round? Could you choose, like, I would like to have twins, so put in 2 this month, or how does that work? Can you choose, or it's up to the doctors, or?
So in the Netherlands you cannot choose, in so far that the first attempts, the first 2 rounds, you can only get 1 placed back each time. When you're up to your third round, so the very last round that you're insured for, you can say, I want 2 embryos placed back fresh. So that means, because the biggest chance you have is straight after the ovum pickup. So because those embryos haven't been frozen, so like I said, the freezing is delicate. So what they do is they take always the best embryo, which is the one they place back first. So on the last attempt, when your insurance is about to run out, you can say, I want my 2 best to be placed back. So that is something you can do. And then also after the age of 38, if you're 38 or over, you could also say, I want 2 placed back straight from the beginning.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. But they're not a big fan here of making triplets.
Yeah.
For triples. Just for the fun of it.
Yeah, no. No, but okay, so it's one at a time until like around age 38, and then you can choose for 2, or on your third round.
On your third round, yeah. You can also choose for 2.
Is there a maximum age that you can be for insurance to cover IVF? Or
yes, I just looked it up. It's 50.
50?
Yes, but I actually saw this, that there was also an article under it where apparently Dutch women think that this is too late of an age, but that's a whole different debate.
Yeah.
But until you're 50, you could do this.
Wow. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just thinking of like a 50-year-old with a newborn. It's exhausting.
Yeah, I don't know many 50-year-olds who want to do it, but you can.
Yeah. No, that's really amazing.
Yeah.
Is there anything that you would want to tell if somebody was telling you like, wow, I'm about to go through my first round of IVF? Like, do you have any advice that you would want to share with them, or anything that you would tell them, or anything that like you look back and you're like, I wish someone told me that one thing, it would have made it so much easier? Or if not, it's okay, we cut this question out.
No, I think that for me the main thing is have patience. But also, as much as that the people in the hospital were very nice, like I said, it was sometimes difficult to make appointments. So also really stand up for yourself and say, okay, why do I have to wait another month? Or sometimes you really had to push them a little bit to get. Sometimes you could get things earlier done than when they were just like, oh, we'll do it then in March, you know. Can we also do it in February? Sometimes I asked and then they actually said yes. So I think that would be one of my tips. And then a very little tip is when you're injecting hormones, and especially when you don't like needles like myself, an ice pack is really the key. So freeze it off first, so you're numb, and then my husband actually injected my hormones because I couldn't do it myself.
No, but that's a good tip.
The ice pack is really my tip, the golden tip.
And that's a great tip. Once you are successfully pregnant through this treatment, then do you continue being seen by the fertility specialist or the gynecologist at Erasmus, or do you go back to the midwife? What's that process like for?
I think that depends a lot on your situation. In the situation where the problem lies mostly with the woman, and there is also an increased risk of miscarriage, I think you would stay in the hospital where you've done the IVF treatment. In my case, I am actually completely healthy. So after I had 2 more ultrasounds when I was pregnant, the last one being at 12 weeks. And then they said, now you're off to your midwife, because there is nothing special about this pregnancy anymore. So that's really nice for me because I don't have to drive that far. I'm in my own village with the midwife. Yeah.
But that's, so then it's everything goes back to like as if you were not, hadn't had IVF. Okay.
Definitely.
And then for others, maybe you will be required to
stay at least, having your checkups in the hospital. Yeah. But every pregnancy and every woman is so different. Yeah. There's so many things you can have during pregnancy. Yeah. So, yeah.
And then of course you get after birth, then you get the Kraamzorg. Yeah. People who watch this channel know like how I feel about that, and
they don't speak so much English though.
That's true. I was lucky. The few that we had, they were willing to speak English. There was one that refused to speak English, and she was an American lady that moved here to be with her Dutch husband, and she was shaming me so much for not speaking Dutch, and she refused. She wouldn't even write in the Kraam book. She would not write in English, and everyone else did.
Okay, that's interesting. Yeah.
But okay, no. Is there anything else to say? Like your medication was that covered with that?
No, really, the 385 is it. So everything else is covered. Yeah, medication, treatments in the hospital. I was also, that's maybe one thing to mention. I was actually hospitalized after my first round of IVF treatment for a couple of days because when they grow, the hormones grow the follicles. They can actually grow them. If they give you the first time, of course, they don't know how your body is going to react to the hormones. So my body reacted quite heavily. It was like, okay, we're going to grow. So they actually grew a little bit too much. So my ovaries started expanding a lot, and something happens that I hope I'm saying this right, but the follicles start leaking fluid. And that makes your blood thicker, because from your blood it leaks fluid somehow. Well, I feel really like a non-expert trying to explain this. But it's called overstimulation, that's in short. So if you Google that, you can find out really how it works rather than my half explanation. So that's a bit dangerous, of course, if your blood gets thick. So I got hospitalized for a few days, and they gave me loads of fluids. And and then you can get really sick from that. You can also get super nauseous, and for me it was not that bad, luckily. But also that was completely covered by the insurance. That was where I was going with that.
Dutch medical care. I mean, you know, when I lived in the States and you hear about like what is socialized medicine or social medicine or this, like, you know, it really sounds horrifying. Like,
I cannot imagine how, though.
You know, you have to wait like a year to get a test with a doctor, or like, you know, you might break your arm, but you can see a specialist in 2 weeks. So you're like dangling with your broken arm, which is like so ridiculous, you know?
That's not true.
That is not true. It's not true. I thought, okay, this sounds ridiculous. Like, common sense does not tell me that you walk around with a broken arm for 2 weeks. But what really blew my mind was this cost of fertility treatments, because that is something that I never would have expected.
I have to say, even for me, when I learned about it, I was quite happy, because I heard from television, we have a lot of American television here, you know, I saw a lot on about the fertility treatment and how expensive they are. And then when I found out in the Netherlands that actually it's completely covered, like even better than I thought, because when you hear 3 attempts, you think, oh, 3 embryos placed, but no, it's like 3 times the whole thing. So I was very pleasantly surprised, actually, to be honest.
Yeah. It just goes again to show like the commitment towards families in this country. Like, you know, even talking up to my friend Mary in Germany, who I just mentioned, Germany is also considered a family friendly country, but not to the extent that they cover IVF treatments in their health insurance the way that it is here. So yet another like good job, Netherlands. And if you're watching this from America, this is what it looks like, you know, what medicine looks like here. The only thing that I would maybe say that I've noticed is maybe you wait like a couple extra weeks to get like a non-urgent test. Right? So like
cannot deny
that, but again, it's not like you're waiting 2 years. It's a few weeks or maybe like a couple months. I don't know. But are you happy with like the medical care you've had in the Netherlands as a Dutch person overall?
Oh, very happy, yes.
And with the IVF treatments, what would, out of like 10, what would you give your satisfaction rating on
the medical care in the Netherlands?
On IVF in the Netherlands.
I would say about a 9, probably.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The only thing with the waiting
list. Of course,
it
helps that it's because it's covered. So you're not also you're not that critical. No, but it was really like I said, also the way we listened to, and I never, you know how sometimes you can feel in a hospital like they think they know what's best for you, and I think I had it even less with the IVF doctors, to be honest, that they were even more patient and working with us, you know, rather than just saying, okay, this is how we're going to do it. Because, for example, after the overstimulation, they lowered my hormones quite considerably for the next attempt, for my second baby, but then I had only 1 embryo. So then I talked to them and I said, okay, can we go somewhere in the middle? And they were a little bit hesitant, but in the end, they let me do it, and they let me increase a little bit again the hormones. So that's what I mean. Like, they really listened to us, and they weren't very authoritarian, I guess you would say, or arrogant. So
Great.
It's really good.
Yeah. Well, Elke, thank you so much for sharing like your experience and for being so open. I'm sure that you talking about this is going to help so many women who are looking for this information, maybe in English, or or even for Dutch people who are watching this who might not know what it's like here and how incredible the system is set up. So thank you for sharing your experience and being open. And you guys, thank you guys for watching. If you have any questions, I would say like leave them in the comments, but we're not doctors, so it would be very hard for us to answer them. Like if you have any questions, call up your GP and ask them, or but yeah, please leave a nice little comment for Elke for being out here and like being, willing to share her experience. It's quite scary to do YouTube if you're not like doing YouTube for your job. So thank you guys.
It's okay, and I'm happy to do it, And maybe as a closing remark, I can say that I really wanted to do this because I think that's even in the Netherlands there's still a bit of taboo on the whole subject, and also to make people more aware that there are actually a lot of people who are struggling with this, so that next time you ask that 30-something person, how about you? Why don't you have kids yet? Maybe just before you ask, don't ask it, because you just never know what people are going through. So that's something I also really wanted to share.
That was absolutely perfect advice. I couldn't agree more. Yeah. So thank you guys so much for watching. Thanks for coming over, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.